Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be organizing Ascension Tactics, the miniatures deck building game, published by Stoneblade Entertainment and Ultra Pro Entertainment. This is a fully sleeved Kickstarter edition of the game with no lid lift that is organized to get gameplay started as soon as possible. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. Let's get started organizing Ascension Tactics. Let's lift off the lid here, and inside you'll see that we have, draped on top, the rulebook for the game, as well as the scenario booklet. You'll put these on top and keep them nice and flat. Underneath those booklets, you'll have the game board, which is actually double-sided, with one side featuring this blank terrain board, so you can set up whatever scenario you'd like, but then also having a pre-printed scenario 1 on the back side of the board. Really nice for just getting a game in without having to set up any terrain. Very, very cool feature. Underneath all of that, you have your plastic insert. We're actually going to be keeping the plastic insert and not making any large modifications to it. It works extremely well with protecting the miniatures, holding different rings for the player-controlled cultists, as well as keeping slots for sleeved cards. This works extremely well. First, let's start off with the cards. For all of these, we're going to be using standard size sleeves. Now, for all of the double-sided cards, we use the Ultra Pro Pro Matte standard size. I really like the way they shuffle, and they've got a great matte finish. So these are going to be for all your clear sleeves, and we'll talk about those in a second. For everything else, we're using the Ascension Tactics branded sleeves. These include the red, blue, and black back sleeves, but these actually feature a clear section, so you can actually see a little bit of what's underneath each of these, which is really nice for the multicolored natures of these Ascension Tactics branded cards. One quick thing to note when it comes to these Ascension Tactics sleeves is they're actually backwards. So normally you're going to put your bottom of your card here and they pop out the top like this, but unfortunately these are actually printed in reverse. Luckily when they are fully sleeved you can't really tell, but it is something to be aware of that they're actually printed the opposite way. So it is a little bit goofy when it comes to these Ascension Tactics branded sleeves. In this bottom left section here we have three types of cards. First off, we have your gateway cards. You'll have these as a reminder of which gate is your color, as well as your 2 extra command points that you could use every round. Then we have all of our always available cards, including your cultist cards, your heavy infantry cards, and then lastly, your mystic cards. So put these on their appropriate spaces on the board. The third type of card is the center deck. You'll just shuffle this gigantic deck of cards here. These are all your cards with that black background. You'll shuffle them up and then reveal that 6 in the center of the table. Lots of cards in this deck. In this middle section here, we're going to have 5 different types of cards. First off, we have your starting deck cards. These include your militia as well as your apprentice. Up next, you'll have all of your player champions. So these are going to have this blue back here, and you'll grab the card as well as their associated miniature, and you'll use these for your team. So very, very cool. I love the artwork in this game. These next 3 decks will be for your varied modes of play, including the Sigil cards here with this very nice artwork splayed on the back, so you'll use the clear sleeve for these. These red back scheme cards for when you're playing that solo and co-op mode. Very nasty, but I love the way that this solo and co-op system works. And lastly, we have all of your villain champions. Make sure these are in your clear double-sided sleeves. You're going to use the strong side for that cooperative mode, and then the weaker side for the solo mode. So make sure that you have all of these in those clear sleeves, as mentioned before. Very, very cool how this system works once again. In the right section here, we have all of these hexagonal tiles. These are going to be your terrain, as well as your different icons and symbols. You'll populate the board with these command centers, basically whatever your scenario requests. They all fit nicely here, and so you can just pick out what you need based on the scenario you're playing. Underneath those hexagonal tiles, you'll have all of your round tokens. You'll put all your treasure tokens for storage here, because you'll want to randomly shuffle them face down and apply them to the board first, and then put the remainder into the treasure bag, which we'll talk about later. So you got your treasure token tiles here. In addition to the treasure tiles, you'll have a variety of other round tokens in this section, including your co-op and solo markers for the different villain champions, and then you'll also have different terrain markers, as well as certain tokens that'll be summoned through specific cards. So those will all fit in there nicely as well. The last tokens in here are the square cultist tokens. You won't need these if you have the Kickstarter version because you have the miniatures, but they are an option if you want to use these instead. That brings us to our treasure bag. Now, as I said before, you're going to be putting those treasure tokens into here after you actually populate the board. So you'll want to keep them separate so you can shuffle them in a face-down pile and then allocate them to the board without them accidentally flipping up or you seeing the other sides. But for now, inside this treasure bag here, we have all of our honor tokens. So we got our 5s and our 1s. You'll actually dump out this bag near the board and then fill it with those treasure tokens. So it's kind of a multi-purpose bag here. The rest of the components in this section are not going to be used if you plan on using the miniatures. For example, these are the bases for champions as well as the cultists based on your player color that you choose to be. And then underneath that, we have all of the square tile version of the champions. I do like that this retains the artwork, but if you're planning on using the miniatures, you will not be pulling these out. The rest of the insert is filled with the different miniatures. So you have these large dragon miniatures in this main section, which do look pretty fantastic. So I really like the way they work here, and I like how this insert keeps them protected well organized, and a lot of no lids, so it's really nice to just pull them out and get them onto the board, get that gameplay started pretty dang quickly. This top section here is actually a tray that will lift off and has its own plastic lid that you can pull off if you need any of these pieces at the start of the game. Underneath that, we have another tray with just a variety of champions, and once again, no lid that you have to take off. Really nice to just take things out, get them on the board. And then a final set of champions that you'll just leave inside of the box here. And that is everything in Ascension Tactics. Let's go ahead and pack it up. First off, let's put that giant miniature dragon in here. And then we'll place our 2 miniatures tray on that top section like so. We'll put a silica gel packet in here for freshness. All of your cardboard champion tokens in this upper left section. Our colored bases for our standees. Our treasure bag holding all of our honor tokens. Our square cultist tokens in this bottom right section. All of our miscellaneous round tokens. The rest of our treasure tokens, and then we'll place all of our hexagonal terrain tokens on top. We'll then take our center deck and put in this bottom left section, followed by our always available and gateway cards. We'll then take our villain champion and scheme decks and put them in this middle section, followed by our sigil cards and our champion cards. And lastly, our starting deck cards, our militia and our apprentices in that middle section. We'll then place our game board, and then our rulebook and scenario book, and that is organizing Ascension Tactics. If you have any questions about what you saw here, please let me know down in the comments below. How do you organize your copy of Ascension Tactics? Did you get the Kickstarter Edition, or are you playing the retail version? What do you think of the innovations they've made on the Ascension system and deck building as a whole? Who's your favorite champion? We'd love to hear what you think. But thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong.